Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. I don't know if it's morning for you. Today we're going to work with our sourdough starter. My sourdough starter needs fed. It's been neglected a little bit in the refrigerator, and I thought I'd bring you along to show you how I take care of this. So hang on. It's gonna get kind of wobbly. Just as here we go. All right, so sorry about that. Lumpy bumpy. There we go. So what we have here, we have my poor little sad sourdough starter. And it's very thin because it's been neglected in the refrigerator. If you have neglected your sourdough starter, this looks more like a batter, but it's okay, it's fine. If you've neglected your sourdough starter and it separates, I should have left this separated, but I went ahead and mixed it down. As long as there's no mold, and you'll know mold when you see it. It's the green, fuzzy, nasty, black looking stuff. But what happens is, as the yeast bacteria break down the carbohydrates in the flour, in your starter over time, you'll get some separation. It'll smell a little, almost like nail polish remover, and it's fine. But you'll have a separation. Sometimes it'll be clear, sometimes it'll be dark, but as long as it's not moldy, you're good. Now, you'll see what I've got here. I don't buy specialty equipment if I don't have to. These are just fast food plastic cups. You run through, you get some lunch, you get a drink, tea, water, soft drink or whatever, and you get these sturdy plastic cups. And of course they have a lid on them. I've got my lids being washed, or I should have brought one over. And these are two different ones. These are excellent for your sourdough starter. You didn't have to go buy any specialty equipment. Hang on, let me get a lid. Let me show you. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. And, oops, wrong one. And, I get ahead of myself and get started, and I don't have all my little ducks in a row. Okay, so I had just cleaned these because I'm cleaning out some of my containers as I feed and split my starters. So this is just a typical fast food drink lid. Oops, I think it goes on this one. Yeah. And so you'll see when I get my starter mixed up in here, this lid has a hole in it, right, for the straw. That's the perfect, that lets a flow of air, because in sourdough starter, you want an exchange of air. If you're doing sauerkraut or other ferments like that, you don't. That's why you have those vapor or airlocks. But in a sourdough starter, you do want some exchange of air, and this straw hole is perfect. So you can tighten your lid down, and if like me, you keep it in the refrigerator, because I don't make sourdough every day, so I keep my starters in the refrigerator after they've been fed and put them down for a nap, you could say. If it gets tipped over, the sourdough's not going to spread all over my refrigerator. Or if it outgrows itself, and sometimes we do that, we don't pay attention, and our sourdough gets so excited and grows so fast that it pops the lid off of stuff. If you have something with the lid just kind of on it, it pops it off and it runs down the side. We've all experienced that, and we've all seen pictures of people who do. This will keep, it may come up out of here, but it's not going to be that gigantic mess. So there's that. Let's get started with this. Now, the specialty equipment, I use a scale. It's really more accurate. You don't have to, but you get more accurate results in your starters if you do use a scale. So what I want to do is I want to put a couple ounces of starter, then I'll put a couple ounces of flour and a couple ounces of water. So I'll end up with 6 ounces altogether, because it's a 1, 1, and 1 mix. Okay? So, to do the starter, I'm going to put it in here first. Now, On this scale, because this is a little digital scale, and I just got it at the big box store up the street for a few dollars, it wasn't very much. Has a little battery that every now and again needs to be replaced. But I'm going to turn it on with this cup on it so that it comes up and it doesn't think there's anything sitting there. It'll come up as a 0. And what you probably can't see, let me see if I lift it, it changes the weight because it's getting pressure from the bottom. But let me just take that off. Over here, you'll see it's showing unit. You'll change the unit from liquids and metrics to pounds and ounces in U.S. standard. But when I have the cup on there, now I've goofed around with it, but there it goes. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know. This right here says 0. So it's zeroed out. It thinks it's blank. It thinks it's empty. So anything I add to it, it's going to take as new. And I'm going to change this to pounds, not fluids. There we go, pounds and ounces. Because ideally, this is not a liquid. Ideally, this is a gooey, sticky, pasty kind of starter. So I'm going to do this until it says 2 ounces. There we go. And see, that's not very much. And you don't need very much. See? All right. So this is on pounds and ounces. So that's dry measure. And I'm going to dry measure. Now I'm going to use some bread flour. If you get, if your sourdough starter gets kind of sad and tired, you can use bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content. So it will, the proteins in the bread flour will help boost your sourdough starter. You don't have to, but you do get a little better results. Now, some of you may recognize these. These are those little ice cream cups. So you buy, what is it, a dozen ice cream cups. Some of them are chocolate, some of them are vanilla at the big box store. And these are the little plastic cups that are left. These are perfect. These are perfect for stuff like this. Rinse it out. Use it as a measuring. So I'm going to put this down here. And because it's a new piece of plastic, it weighs different than our empty drink cup. I need to tare this. T-A-R-E, tare. And that just means reset it to 0. And this crazy little thing likes to think you have turned it off because it's very sensitive and my hands are not. Come on, come back on. There we go. So I got big fingers and that's made for little people fingers. So that's my label and my little scoop. Don't do this for this small amount. If I had a bigger bowl, I would use this to scoop it out, but I'm not going to. I'm going to use my spoon. And you'll recognize this as that. And see, I've written with a Sharpie pen on top of bread flour so that I know what I've got in here. Why am I reusing this? Well, because I reuse stuff, and this is already food-grade plastic, okay? Already food-grade plastic. It will help keep the little critters out. It'll help deter some of the bigger critters. Some of the bigger critters could gnaw through this if they really wanted to and took long enough. But for the most part, they're going to leave this alone. And I want 2 ounces. These things can hold 4 if you pack it in there, but I don't want to pack it in there. I want it to be kind of light and fluffy. There we go, 2 ounces. Drop that back in there and put the lid back on. See, I even wrote on the lid too. Bread flour and Sharpie pens, as I've said 10,000 times before. If it doesn't wash off with your dish soap, it will come off with isopropyl alcohol, or if it's really stubborn, nail polish remover. But be very careful using nail polish remover on any plastics. They can mess up plastics. So there's 2 ounces of flour. 2 ounces of starter. Now I'm going to change this to fluid ounces or liquids. There we go. I'm going to use another little cup here. And this is not hot water. I boiled this water a few days ago for some tea. It sets on my stove all the time. It's not hot all the time. Obviously, it's not burning me. But once city water or tap water sits out about 24 hours, all of those weird, or most of those weird chemicals that they use to kill bacteria are dissipated. And you want to either do it this way or use distilled water, because you don't want to take a chance in the chloramides and chlorines in here destroying the yeast, because yeast is a bacteria in your starter. So I'm going to pour this in here. Oops. There we go. And there's 2 ounces of water. All right, so I'm going to turn this off now because I'm not measuring anything anymore. Just set it over out of the way. And all I'm going to do is mix this up. I mean, that's it. Just mix it up. Then my starter. I'm going to pour the water in first and thin that starter out. Mix that up a little bit. Don't ever, if your starter isn't molded, but if it separates and you've got all that liquid on top, they call that liquid hooch. Hooch has a little bit of bad reputation. Some people use it for the word for like grain alcohol and stuff. That, in this case, that's not what it is. Don't ever pour that off. It's part of the whole mix. It's just separated. Kind of like if you mix oil and vinegar for a salad dressing and they separate after a while. Don't ever pour it off. So we're going to pour now our flour in. And we're going to stir it up. Now you could do this in another bowl and then transfer it over, but what's the point of that? You've got more messy stuff to clean up. And you just want to make sure you don't have any big clumps of flour. You're going to have a few small ones, but that's okay. You don't want any great big ones. And your sourdough starter becomes your sourdough starter over time. It collects the yeast that are in the air of your home, the natural yeasts that are in the, oh, here's my towel, in your air at your home. And even if you pay big money for these, San Francisco sourdough starters, if you can keep it alive, over time, the San Francisco yeasts are gone and they're overtaken by your own yeast. So it becomes your own bread. Now see, our starter is kind of gloopy, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The bacteria are awake. I took them out of the refrigerator a while ago. It's room temperature now. And they're saying, ooh, baby, I'm hungry. Give me that flour and a little water to drink it down with. All right, so there's that. Now, I could clean this up a little more. You could use a silicone or rubber spatula. I think we generically call them rubber spatulas, but they're all silicone nowadays. And you can mark this if you want to. In this case, there's a little ridge right here, or a little indentation in the cup, so I can tell as it perks up, it's going to grow up the sides. I don't personally worry about it doubling. What I'm going to do now, of course, my sourdough it's not legacy because it's not several years old, but my sourdough starter has been going since last year. And honestly, sometimes I get overwhelmed. If you could see how many of these cups I have in the refrigerator, it takes it all up because I get worried that I'll ruin one. But so far, we haven't done that. And sometimes I make a couple loaves, and sometimes, it doesn't really take that much to make a loaf or a bowl of bread. So you don't really need that much of a starter. But the thing you need to do is when you feed it equal amounts. In my case, we did 2 ounces of starter, 2 ounces of flour, 2 ounces of liquid. And you measure them differently because flour or pounds and ounces of dry is a different volume than pounds and ounces of liquids. You just put this little lid on because I told you I do this. This is the right size. Nope. I need a smaller lid for this one. That goes in there. But that's one thing you have to think of that we forget. Let me see if I can show you real quick. Wipe this off. I think some of you probably understand that idea. But let's see. We're set on liquids. All right, let's do an ounce of water. So this is a fluid ounce that I'm pouring out here. There we go. That's a fluid ounce of water. I don't know if you can see it right there. Now let's change this to dry measure or pounds and ounces. And let me show you an ounce of flour. And part of the reason you don't scoop flour out like that when you're making cakes and sourdough starter and stuff, use this clean one, is because it gets compacted. And by using the weight, you get consistent results because an ounce of flour is an ounce of flour. But a scoop of flour packed down can weigh more than. So if you take if you took a 1/4 cup measure and you scooped it down real hard, it would weigh more than a 1/4 cup of sifted by volume. Okay, so look at the difference. Look how much more dry ingredient there is than wet. I know it's hard to see and hard to get them level. But if I could set these on top of each other without changing it, you've got about 1/3 more, not by weight, but by volume, powder or flour than you do the solid liquid. I know it's hard to tell, but anyway, it's true. And by measuring weight, you get more consistent results. Now, I'm not going to tell you you're doing it wrong. I'm just going to tell you get better results. Because if it's working for you, if you're getting good results on your sourdough creations, whether it's breads or pancakes or cakes or whatever you're doing with it, then keep it up. Don't let somebody tell you you're wrong. If you're getting good results, then who's to say you're wrong? So let me do this and just look you in the eye and tell you, if it works for you, then fine. But this is the way I do it. You can actually see right there. I've got quite a few cups of sourdough starter. I've got some baking to do. It's almost Thanksgiving. So, but yeah, so we're about 18 minutes in. It should really have been shorter than that, but have fun with it. And if you have any questions, ask me. And I think I have, well, if I don't, I'll do a video on the boules I make in the next few days using this starter. Okay? Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.